So it's a rainy fall day here, and it's the perfect time to lift and move peonies. There's something that's like really intimidating about moving peonies for some reason. It feels like a really like high stakes process. Like even compared to moving like established shrubs and stuff, I would much rather do one of those. I think the reason is that I worry about like kind of planting it correctly after so that it still blooms and not messing up the kind of underground tubers too much and stuff like that. So last year we discovered a peony that was growing under one of the giant maple trees and it was in way too much shade. Luckily, it had one white bloom, so we knew what color it was. So after it had finished blooming, we dug it up, divided it in two, and then planted it right by one of our ponds, and it actually each clump bloomed separately, and they each had one. One of them may have had two flowers. I can't really remember, but anyway, so they bloomed the first season, so that was amazing. So that made the whole thing a little bit less scary. So today I want to dig up four different clumps that are all in too much shade. I don't actually know what color the blooms are, but I thought that I would just move them. If it's completely the wrong color, then that's fine, and we can just dig them up again a few years down the line. But for now, I wanted to show you this one over here. So there's also this like kind of dying rhododendron. I think just like 2 summers of hard drought have just like not been good for it. So anyway, ignore that for now. The plan is to come in and cut it down to about 2 feet, and hopefully it should flush out fresh growth in the spring, and that will kind of be its final chance. Anyway, so here is this peony, and the dogs love to charge through here, so it's a little bit flopped on the ground. So I have like these are all the peony stems, and there's a few little like hideouts. So what I want to do is cut in a big circle, cut in a big circle around it, and then lift the whole thing. So I'm going to go around and go straight down. I'm not going to actually like kick it up after. And I'm not sure how easy this is going to be because I don't think anything has like dug here in a very long time. Okay, so I'm just going to make the holes. Okay, so this one I think completes the circle-ish. So I'm going to try to lift a little now and see what happens. Just kind of going like as gently as I can. Okay, so those are definitely peony tubers. I definitely cut a big one. So I think that this clump at some point was a lot bigger than it is now. And then over the years, it's kind of just like atrophied. So I'm gonna take this behind the house and clean it all up. I'm gonna get rid of all the other weeds and everything else that's growing in here. And then I'll check back in after and show you what it looks like. So I divided up all the peonies that I dug up. Um, the one that was, it looked like three that were all together. I'm not sure what was planted there originally and what kind of grew into other things, but I've ended up with, I think, 5 different clumps, each of which have at least a couple eyes. Even this one accidentally broke off the the stem that was on it, but you can see here, there's like, that's an eye there. There's like 2 there, and I think it's like recommended that you have at least like 3 per clump. Um, or at least that will be an indicator of how soon it will bloom. I think if there's just like 1, it might take a little bit longer. So anyway, so we have all these awesome pieces here, and while I was digging them up, I also discovered a bunch of Alchemilla mollis, so or lady's mantle. There's 2. I think there was a third that oh no, here it is. Anyway, these volunteer all over the garden. So I'm just gonna plant these somewhere else because they're super cute. um, and then I wasn't sure, like, because the roots were all so tangled, and it was under a euonymus. What are those called? Like a fire bush or something? It's the ones that turn like flame red, kind of this time of year in October. So between that, the lady's mantle, and then the peonies, plus like everything else like grasses, I was kind of like just taking more off than I thought. If I wasn't sure that it was connected to the peonies, basically I would take it off just to make sure that I wasn't spreading anything else around the garden that I didn't want to. So what I'm thinking for these guys is, I'm not sure of the color, but I'm like, it's probably going to be white or pink. um, so my thought is to put it by the pond down here, and I'll show you that in a second. And then for this one, I like suspect that this one might be burgundy. I can't remember if it had bloomed once last year, but and this was the first clump that I dug up. But I thought that I would put it in this pot, kind of just by accident. The pot was here from the project I did yesterday, but I'm thinking of just planting it in here. This pot is nice because the rim is basically the widest point. So even if something gets kind of root bound, you can still slide it out. That's really important if you're potting something on. If it's something that's rounder and more closed at the top, you might have to break it to take out what you're doing. Yeah, but this clump like already has like a bunch of growth, as you can see. And like I said, it may have bloomed. This is the only one that we may have gotten 1 flower from last year, but I've checked my like photo records, and I couldn't see it, so here we are. But it has like pretty chunky roots. Those are pretty huge. And then like, these would have been like an eye this time last year. Um, Still a few other things, and I do see some fresh ones coming up. I'll take off like a little bit more. Yeah, so like this, I think belonged to something else. So peonies, I think, like quite a bit of moisture, and they don't like to like sit in water. I think those like thick tubers can rot if they sit in water. So this stuff is pretty good because it has sand and it also has the composted bark. So it has pretty good drainage and it can retain some moisture. So I'm just filling it about halfway because I want the soil level to basically be right where the eyes are. And then I want to have just like a little room on top so that I can put just a tiny bit of mulch for winter. I don't think they really need it for protection because they're such hardy plants, but I think it will help suppress any weeds that try to come up. So I'm just kind of being gentle, putting the soil back on because I don't want to like compress any of those roots that were still intact. So we're pretty much there. I'll just put a little bit more, and then when I water it, it will kind of settle, and then I can just top dress it with a little. Ooh, there's a little worm here. We'll add him to the pot. Sweet. So I'll give this some water, and then I'm just going to gently top dress it with a little bit of mulch to suppress any weeds. And then I'll put it somewhere
where it's just like a little bit protected so it doesn't like oversaturate with water. So probably up against the greenhouse or the house or something like that. Sweet. So this one's all set. So I'll put this one by the house and then I'll go plant in the other ones and then I'll check back in. So I decided to dig 4 holes in the bed here, and I picked this spot because there's pretty good access to moisture. It's on a slight slope, so they'll never be sitting in water. Like where the lawn is here, I'm not sure if it's in the shop, but like right next to this, sometimes it floods, but this bed will always stay dry. And I also have to think of the dogs because there's certain places that they like love to charge through, but this area is relatively safe. Things tend to be a little bit slower. Sometimes they'll come and like drink from the pond or something. But this area should be pretty safe. And then peonies like pretty rich soil, so I mixed in that same mix that we've used for the potted peony that I did, which has composted bark. It has mushroom compost and it has sand. So I probably had enough material to do 5 separate plants with, but some of the little pieces I prefer to put with bigger ones so that it can become a bigger clump sooner. And those of you who know that I'm kind of like particular about planting in odd numbers. There is actually a 5th peony right here that's still just the baby, but eventually there will be 5. And then I don't know if I said before, but I don't know exactly what color these ones are because they've never bloomed. But just based on like the person's taste who lived here before us, they're either like pink, white, or like burgundy. So either way, I think they'll fit in really nicely here because those are kind of the colors of this area of the garden. So I'm making sure that everything has some eyes, and I'm going to make sure that those eyes are planted at surface level. So I have one here, one there, and there are likely a few more. I didn't take like everything away here, so yeah, we'll find out. Oh, another one there. Sweet. I'll gently kind of fluff this back around. A lot of this mulch we laid last year, and you can see it's like full of mycelia or like the fungal network stuff. So that's awesome because I'm sure they're breaking it down and turning it into stuff that the peony will like as well. Just below the soil surface now, but once I water it, I think they'll be pretty much at the level and I can always double check them. And I'm not pressing it too hard because I just want it to like settle in and around them all first. But basically that times the other 3. So this one doesn't really have roots. It has this like one rootlet, but it has 2 eyes here. So I'm sure this will form into something. So I thought if I put these 2 together, hopefully they'll make a nice clump. Okay, so that's basically it. I marked each of them with a brick so that when I come here in a month and there's no growth, I still remember where they are. And I'm actually going to come through and cut all the stalks. I don't think that I need to do this right now. Like, I think doing it in winter would be fine. But the reason I'm doing it is otherwise, like, the dogs might run through. And if they like trip on this, they can yank the whole tuber out or like even break the tuber. So I'd rather just eliminate that possibility. as much as possible. Well, if like me, you've been intimidated about lifting and moving peonies in the past, I would say go for it. It's less scary once you actually do it. And with the experience from last year where like both of them took and bloomed, I'm like, okay, I think I got this. So I'll have to check back with you in the springtime to see how they've done. But thanks for coming along today, and I'll catch you next time.